I want to welcome each one of you today to this Yana meeting of people getting together for a midweek pick-me-up. I have not been here in about a month because about 2 weeks of that I was on a 14-day cruise from Los Angeles through the Panama Canal to Miami. So last week at this time, I was actually in the Caribbean seas sailing towards Miami. There were a couple of things that happened on that cruise that really impacted me. And one of them was our stop in Colombia, South America. So now I've been to another continent, which I hadn't been before, but that wasn't what really grabbed me. We actually went to one of the locations where the Spanish Inquisition where the punishment from the Spanish Inquisition was done. And a large portion of those people punished were the slaves from the Caribbean who did not give up their belief in their herbs and probably voodoo to some extent and things like that. And as I looked at some of the things some of the people were punished for, I realized that I would have probably been brought forward as a witch too, that I would have probably had to answer some of the questions of the Inquisition. And one of the questions that came into my mind through that process is my faith and my belief strong enough that I would have been willing to continue to practice what I believe and to continue to do what I do in the face of that kind of retribution, where they literally pulled people apart and burned them at the stake and many other things. They did. Their punishment, at least in South America, was always extreme, but never fast. They never approved the guillotine, but they had many other ways to kill people. And as we left that site and walked about 3 blocks, we went to a Jesuits monastery where Peter Carver, I think it was a Jesuit priest who was there to protect the slaves, who was there to support them. And even the church in Cardigan was built where the bottom floor was for the slaves and any of the Caribbean people who wanted to come into that church, and where the balconies were for the Spanish and the other people who were more of the government. But he was there to love and support people, while the Inquisition was there to judge people and to try to make everybody believe the same thing. And this was going on literally within 500 feet of each other, and to some degree during the same time period. So I have been looking at just what do I believe and how strong are my beliefs? And one of the questions and one of the things I truly know and believe, and I've said it many times, is that I don't consider myself a religious person, but I consider myself a spiritual person. So what does it mean to me to be a spiritual person? Ernest Holmes said that spirituality is a constant, consistent attempt to feel the presence of God in everything and everyone. He says that in the Living the Science of Mind. In the introduction to the Hidden Power of the Bible, he says spirituality is common goodness, human kindness, natural truth, brotherly love, heavenly worship. To be spiritual is to be normal. All people are spiritual part of the time. Some people are spiritual nearly all of the time. And that's also from the same introduction. Spirituality is the consciousness that comes from communing with God. That's also from Living the Science of Mind. And Holmes goes on to say in the Science of Mind textbook, one of the greatest difficulties in the new order of thought is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. That we think, my interpretation is that we think more than we practice. So spirituality is our personal relationship with God. To me, it's maybe a little hard to define. The theme for this month in Centers for Spiritual Living is self-evaluation is not enough. And I'm using information from the week called What is Spirituality? And the minister who wrote that had an interesting quote. She said, religion is for people who don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is for people who have already been there. And she goes on to say, you may not understand this quote, which is attributed to several different people. She says, but I do. And I can honestly say, so do I. Spirituality has allowed me to get out of the stuff, and pardon the phrase, crap of the world, and to be fully aware as much as possible of my oneness with God. Of knowing that in any situation, God is there. Knowing that all I have to do is to remember to let go of the appearances of what are going on around me and remember the truth that God is love, light, joy, peace, wisdom, wholeness. And God is always in every situation, in every moment. And it is my job to remember that and to feel that. Because to me, spirituality is more of a feeling than something that I can put into words. My spirituality and my connection with God is the feeling that I get when I go into meditation or when I take a deep breath and I can just feel the calm and peace of the world ascending all around me instead of whatever chaos that I am sitting in the middle of. Spirituality is what allows me to be centered and focused as much as possible. I'd love to say it that I do it all the time, but that wouldn't be true. I do it a whole lot more than I did when I started this. And I know that it is a gift that I can give myself anytime. I found an article on a website called Mine. And it says the 6 main differences between religion and spirituality. And the first one is there are no rules in spirituality. One thing that you will find when you enter a Centers for Spiritual Living center is that we don't tell you how to live your life. We don't tell you how to vote. We don't tell you that you're going to hell. We don't tell you all the rules that you have to live by. We allow you to learn to use the laws. We allow you to learn to use principle. We allow you and show you tools and ways to truly connect with the oneness with spirit. And we don't expect you to act in a certain way. I'm sure Reverend Cliff has noticed that there are many, many, many different ways of living life and expressing life expressed in his church. And that was very true in my life and very true in the ministers and the practitioners I know and the people I know. The second difference is spirituality is based on love and not fear. Again, we approach each situation remembering that no matter what is going on, God is in the middle of it. God is there. We just have to find it. This allows us not to live in fear. This allows us to be fully alive, to be fully connected in most moments, any way we can. This allows us to choose to live in love rather than fear. The third one is religion tells you the truth. Spirituality lets you discover it. Again, we don't tell you what to believe. We may tell you what Ernest Holmes said and what I believe. He actually wrote it as what he believed. We have adopted it as what we believe. We may give you ideas of what has worked for us, but we don't tell you, you have to believe that, or you have to act in that way. It says religion separates, spirituality unites. Spirituality unites because part of my spiritual beliefs, part of my spirituality is knowing it's all God. And knowing there is as much God in each one of us as there is in every individual on this planet. Some of them choose to express who they are as a human being in a way that does not fit within how we believe that is for the highest good of that person or all other people. But God is still a part of that person. And sometimes this is one of the hardest teachings for people to get in our denomination. That no matter what a person has done, he's still or she's still God expressing as that person. Maybe not in the way we want to see, but that happens. The fifth one is the difference between karma and punishment. I believe that if I'm being punished, it's because I've chosen to punish myself. And I may be acting in a certain way because of something that has happened in my past that may need to be shifted or changed. But any punishment I lay out is at a human level. God sees me as perfect, whole, and complete in every moment. And it is my job to let go of my judgment and my guilt, and to let go of any judgment and guilt I have around myself or anyone else. And the last one is you walk your own path. Again, we give you tools, we give you ideas, we show you what has worked for us. But we do not require you to follow certain rules to be part of this movement. We allow you to do for what works for you. And to me, spirituality is, as I've said before, is what has given me the peace to live life to its fullest, to be who I am in this moment and every moment. And I am very grateful for this. I am very grateful for the opportunity to really live these principles. And one way, in fact, it's almost the only way for me to live a spiritual life is to remember to connect, to remember to take those moments in the silence and to contemplate God and to contemplate and connect with all that God is, which is love, light, joy, peace, wisdom, wholeness, oneness. That absolute oneness of knowing that all things are God. That when I look around and I see the trees and the grass and the people, that's God. When I see the stars in the sky, that's God. When I breathe, that air is God. When I touch my hand, that's God touching God. Because I am a droplet of God stuff. God is much more than I am, but I am God expressing Linda absolutely perfectly. And I do it better than anybody else because no one else can be me. I am that divine expression known as God expressing Linda. And each one of you are God expressing each one of you absolutely perfectly. And I invite you today to take the time to remember that it's all God and it's all good. And just to live from that space of experiencing the goodness of God. Thank you.